Yeah, so I think there's a lot that crypto means to the world and how it's going to change the world, and a lot that people don't really know about per se. And it's happening whether at this point it's happening whether you agree with it, whether you believe in it or not. And
Hmm.
I think we're at the beginning of a huge revolution that's going on behind the scenes. So I kind of want to be able to explore that and talk to people that know way more than I do about it. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, just bring to light some of the things like the philosophy behind it and what it means to somebody that even doesn't have own any Bitcoin or anything. Somebody that is just trying to live their life, and how is that going to change their life? And things such as that. Like how is this going to affect the whole world? And how is it going to affect our day to day lives? In the future, because money is everything, pretty
Yeah.
much. Money
Yeah.
is it surrounds our life from when we wake up to when we go to sleep at night. So if we have money 2.0, as some people are calling crypto, I want to know how money 2.0 is going to affect me, and how it's going to affect everyone around me. So that's kind of the goal, using it as a learning experience for myself. And then if anyone wants to tune in, they can tune in too. Conscious
Yeah.
crypto.
Yeah. Conscious crypto. I like that. Yeah, and I think that's something that gets lost. I know I find myself getting lost in that, and in you get lost in the trading and the charts and the announcements and partnerships and all of that, but you do lose the philosophical slant, which that's what brought me into it. It's
Yeah.
all the culture and tribalism that like I can get caught up in if I'm sitting there reading on Twitter or whatever. um the biggest thing that I find myself um getting kind of dragged into, but then kind of like getting over it, is the whole like Bitcoin maximalism, right? And like, do you ever see much about that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, like the cult behind Bitcoin.
Right. And like the idea that like every other coin, every other asset, every like there will be nothing but Bitcoin and people will, that's
Yeah.
it. And like those people make a lot of sense and the philosophy behind it makes sense. I just like I always have to step back from that and be like, okay, the other stuff's gonna be around too.
Hmm.
Um, but I think the reason for that is that that's how uh like important Bitcoin is and how it has this ability to like it's different, it looks different depending on who looks at it.
Mm.
And and it's kind of like like I can't think of the word. Anthropomorphic comes to mind, but that might not be right. But anyway, it's just like always changing, and I
Oh
can
yeah.
always look at it. I can look at it and a different light and listen to some people and be like, holy shit, they're right. Like there isn't going to be any other money at all. Like everything's going to be Bitcoin. But then I can look at it and be like, oh, it's like, a backing for the new crypto economy, and that the stock market's going to go away and everything's going to be tokenized and they're going to be
Mm.
valued in Bitcoin and not dollars. But there's all these other coins that are going to, and projects that are going to do stuff.
Mm.
And when I step aside, like that seems more realistic, but I can totally zoom in on Bitcoin and get into that, like, holy shit, no, it's not worth having any other coin and it's not worth having dollars. Like you should just be, 100% in on just Bitcoin. And work for Bitcoin and earn Bitcoin and,
Mhm.
transact in Bitcoin and stuff like that. Like I can easily get in that mold.
Yeah.
Um, and I think the philosophy behind that is the same that makes people uh I don't know how much you've seen of people like talk about, gold bugs or whatever, like people that are really into storing gold or precious metals and like burying them in their backyard or whatever. Um it's that philosophy of like being so scared by how complex and intricate and manipulated and fake the economy is and like kind of always has been because of the central bank. And that fear has created, kind of a libertarian philosophy in people that they're like, you know, I don't want to have money in a bank at all. Like I want to hold my money and I want it in something physical I can touch, you know? And those people see completely eye to eye with Bitcoin maximalists. It's just the difference is that the Bitcoin maximalists have also noticed what you mentioned before, the revolution going on behind the scenes. And, you know, what that is a transition to the information age, which
Yep.
is what, like, it's hard. Like it's hard for non-internet native generations to like picture like a physical thing doesn't matter, you know,
Yeah.
like it like digital does matter.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
you know, that's the biggest like philosophy, whether it's Bitcoin or crypto, that people need to realize if they don't have it, is like it's not going away. The innovation and all the advancement is towards this stuff, towards blockchain, towards crypto, towards encryption in general, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. That's what I've noticed too. From the, I mean, I'm not an expert, but from the research that I've done, I'm just like, the more and more I learn about it, I'm like, whoa, oh, this is big. This is gonna change the world. There's no going back. The cat's out of the bag now. You know, there's no like now that we know the technology is here. I don't think we can just simply go back to fiat currency. And you know, there's no like, all right, Bitcoin's not going to work or blockchain technology isn't going to work. From what I've from what I've researched, I'm just like, okay, this is it. Like this is the next step of
Mm-hmm.
where money is going to go. So I think what I want to ask you, dude, is like, what would you say? What, you know, a very basic premise. What is money, and why is money important? You know, why don't we do bartering anymore? Why don't I trade cows and goats anymore? Like what is money in our society? Why is it important? And why is Bitcoin a better version, or any cryptocurrency, a better version of the money that we have now?
Well, I think that money is a physical representation of the energy that is value. Um, like, you know, I kind of believe that, you know, everything in the universe is energy and matter, right? You know,
Yeah.
but like science would just say like the only energy there is the stuff we've observed. Well, I think there's a lot more energy out there than what we think we've observed or what we can observe to this point that impact us and influence our lives. You know, I think spirit is that, you know, that we touch that energy and really, you know, harness that energy through meditation or you know, religious belief or psychedelics or, you know, all that I think that's what enlightenment is really just kind of like harnessing the energy of spirit.
Mm-hmm.
I think that music is energy. You know, I think like that's a universal energy. Like I think if we found aliens or aliens meant to say they would have music too. I think that's like just an energy that's in the universe. But I think value is that as well. And money is how we represent that. As in you work, you represent value, you get money, right? Or like you mentioned, bartering would be, you know, we used to barter because one person was a farmer and they had something, and another person was a craft, you know, artisan or whatever, and so you would trade milk for a basket that someone made or whatever.
Right.
And so the barter system works in like small, you know, hunter gatherer or villages or whatever. But as we get into larger and larger societies and interact on a day-to-day basis with people we may not know or don't live in the same village or whatever, like that's where we needed to get this thing called money to like take the value that we earned or demonstrated in our direct sphere of influence and carry that to another area, you know, basically. Like and for a while that was salt. For a while that was but then that there was a problem with salt being currency because if it rained, you lost all of the value you had stored up, you know.
Yeah, there was
And
many
that's
different things that were currency over time,
right,
right?
shells, seashells, stuff like that. And
Mm-hmm.
and so we settled on gold. And gold has just built up this importance for 5,000 years or whatever, as a way to store and exchange value. And up until the information age, that really was the thing. Like, no matter what governments rose or fell, like the one constant thing that people respected as value was gold. And I think as we've moved into the information age, it was bound to happen that a digital version of that wasn't bound by the same laws of physics as gold would emerge as a better option. And I think that's Bitcoin. You know, it may not continue to be, but it currently is. And one reason I think that is like I mentioned before about like gold bugs. When you hear a Bitcoiner debate a gold bug, they go right up to the point. Like Peter Schiff, if anyone's ever seen him on Twitter or anything like that, he just can't get over that part in his head that like digital shit matters. He always brings it up like Bitcoin's not real. It has no purpose. It's like an MP3. And that's such a like base level view of how the digital world relates to us now and going forward, and how it will increase to, you know, like if someone thinks the digital files don't matter, okay, then throw your phone in the pond without backing it up and tell me that you're cool with that. Like you know, there's nothing physical on there, like, or whatever. The phone's physical, but all the stuff that you lose, like, I mean, so
it's a good metaphor.
So Bitcoin has all of the outside the government, you know, getting away from fiat, all the inflation fears, deflationary nature, the security, it has all the same stuff as gold. It's just not physical in the same way. And some people can't wrap their heads around that doesn't matter as much anymore. And in fact, I think digital is going to start mattering more. And like, you know, for instance, like take like a teenager or whatever, it's probably less emotional. Well, it probably would bother them less if you punch them, or, you know, someone at school beat them up or got in a fight with them in the physical world than if they online bullied them. You know, like the digital world is becoming more important. And so I think that Bitcoin will kind of become more of a better store of value, a more useful store of value, and possibly, you know, a more long-term store of value than gold. And so basically, I don't really know what money is, but if gold is money, then I don't see why Bitcoin isn't going to be money as well, you know?
Yeah, exactly. As we move further and further into the matrix, into this digital world, like you said, it is literally like we're being surrounded by everything is computers, you know? I mean, money is computers right now. It is on computers. You know, who uses cash anymore, really? I use cash to get a haircut and buy drugs. That's like we don't. It's already digitalized. So I think Bitcoin is the obvious. If everyone just sees that it's already digital, it's already not real. So we need a way to create some kind of backing out of it, right? So people can't just create it, because like I mean, Bitcoin, from what I understand, or any cryptocurrency, you can't just create it out of thin air. Like it is, even though it's not a thing that I can touch and not a thing that I can, you know, give to you physically, it's still it's like a process. It's still something that had to be done. You know, it's the mining process. We don't have to get into the technicalities of it, but there's still value in what it actually is, you know, kind of like in the same essence of gold. I don't actually, why would you say gold had value in the first place? Like why did they decide gold?
Well, two things. One, and the same thing that would make me also always lean towards Bitcoin being the top is proof of work. And so, and we can get into that a little more, but the second thing of why gold had value, like, dude, I don't know. It's just part of that energy. Whatever that energy is of value, the interplay between the matter and energy in gold creates a resonance that just fucking speaks to the heart of humanity, you know?
Yeah, that's
I
interesting.
mean, I
There's
mean,
something
like
to that.
I've say I was digging in the ground, right? I've seen lots of crazy cool rocks or whatever. If I found a nugget of gold in the ground, I don't need the history of the human culture saying, "Hey, that's valuable," to tell me, "Hey, this is special." Like I
Hmm.
would be like, "Holy shit, what is this?" It's like heavy and like I don't know if you've ever held like a you know, a big chunk of gold in your hand, but it's it does something to us. It does
Yeah.
something to our fucking aura, man, you know, and like you know, I've seen you know, conspiracy theory, ancient alien type stuff of, you
Yeah.
know, the Anunnaki like made us genetically to mine gold because it, you know, runs their world or whatever. Like maybe that's possible. I don't know. I could
Maybe.
go down that rabbit hole. I can't say it's not possible, you know. Um, but there's just something about it. So that physical component, I don't think gold's going to be useless. I think its upward trajectory potential of value to the human race is either going to stagnate at best, decline at worst, but it will not outpace that of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Um, and so, and then, so to go back to the proof of work, um, you know, prior to that term being used to mine Bitcoin and other crypto, I think it was used before Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin like utilized that idea, but regardless, um, you know, anything that can't be made out of thin air that has value, whether that's gold or any kind of good or commodity or anything like that, you know, it has to be extracted from the ground. Um, well, let's take oil, for instance. You know, one reason oil has value and it will always go up in time is until we either don't have it anymore or don't need it, which, you know, I don't see happening. I think we'll run out of it before we don't need it anymore. um, all of the infrastructure that has to go around getting it out of the ground, that has to go around refining it and creating all these things, shipping it to gas stations, creating gas motors, all of this stuff around, or all of this infrastructure that costs money creates that value. And as all that stuff needs more money over time and people need more oil over time and there's more people, more cars, more driving, like the value just goes up. And so you can find proof of work in every other, you know, industry, and it's what makes the value go up. More and more people need it. It costs more and more to make it. Um, and that value is stored in whatever it is you're talking about by that proof that there was work to create it, you know?
Hmm.
And so if you take that to Bitcoin, that's why, like, you know, there's so much talk about, you know, the energy usage needed for Bitcoin, right? And that it just needs more and more over time as there's more of them and more transactions and more, you know, people adopting it, and it gets harder to mine. Well, so yes, that's true, but it's kind of worth it if Bitcoin is going to be all the things that I've mentioned, and it is going to be as important for humanity and the economy going forward. It's kind of worth that electricity usage, you know, and because that much energy had to get used to create it, that much value had to get used to create it, it's going to store its value better than another crypto that they're just like, hey, I started this crypto, here's 500 million of them, I'm
Hmm.
airdropping them if you hold this much. And then
Yeah.
it's proof of stake. So if you hold them in your wallet and lock it up for a long time so that you can't take it out, well, then you're going to earn, you know, so like those proof of stake systems with pre-mines, like they may work from a speculation nature, but there's no reason for that value to be stored.
That makes sense.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So the proof of work is it. I like to look at it this way, like um, the Christmas lights, these lights behind me or whatever, like stupid lights that use a lot of energy, but especially Christmas lights, they use a lot of electricity. maybe it's only for a month out of the year in, certain parts of the world, but they use a lot of electricity for like no reason. It's gone. It just is light that just goes off into the ether, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, but Bitcoin is taking that energy and it's storing it in a unit of value that is going to appreciate over time. It's going to, think of the course of 100 years, one Bitcoin that's mined and how many kilowatts it takes. But think about over 100 years, how many lives that one Bitcoin is going to change as it's changed hands and, done whatever.
That's a
It's
good way to
kind of
look at
worth
it.
that energy expenditure,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that
That's true.
Bitcoin's going to ruin financial lives. It's going to be a kingmaker. It's going to be, a mortgage payment. It's going to be, it's going to be all of these things in 100 years to
Yeah.
where, I mean, I don't know the equivalency of how many Christmas lights that would take, but I don't think my neighbor's Christmas light array is going to affect thousands of lives potentially over 100 years,
Yeah. It's just hard for people to visualize that because, like we said before, it's not actually a thing. So how, it's like, because that humans are visual creatures. We like physical things. We like seeing and feeling things. So it's hard to actually put that in our heads. Like, what is this one Bitcoin or half a Bitcoin, whatever it is, going to do for people?
Yeah.
I think it's the problem is because it's not actually like if Bitcoin had like a representation in a physical form, which wouldn't even make any sense really. But like if it did, then it would be like, oh, of course, like that makes more sense. And I think that's why gold makes more sense to, older folks because that's just what we're used to. And, older people aren't really used to this idea of money on the computer. So I think as time goes on, we'll slowly start to understand what it means. But we're still in the beginning stages, obviously, of this whole revolution. But as time goes on, we'll start to realize what it actually means to mine a Bitcoin and what it actually means to have that proof of work and what that value entails. And like you said, how many lives that can change, and what goes up, what actually the whole mining process is, and what the blockchain is, and what that represents. I think slowly but surely we will we will get there, but yeah, I think it's because we're in the beginning stages now,
Oh yeah. I mean, it's so early, but I think that we've hit a period where like we've gone far enough into the information age now that like it's all rolling downhill now. It's all exponential growth and understanding by like the zeitgeist of humanity now will understand these things quicker and quicker and quicker.
Yeah.
Like I mean, every generation understands technology quicker, and you know, like my kids, for instance, like they will just I'll sit there trying to change the settings on my son got a new monitor, and like I used to be good at that, but like I I don't know, like stuff has changed and like I couldn't get the right resolution and it looked wonky, and he was all upset because I didn't just know how to do it. And like I was like, I don't know, dude, we'll call your uncle and he'll come, do it or whatever. And then like I went away and like 10 minutes later, he's like, I fixed it. And he was like gotten on a Discord about this, asked, and like, it's just like information to reach out for information and just learn and figure it out. Like it's just every generation understands it and figures it out quicker. And I mean, I think with regards to Bitcoin mining, I think we'll just get to a point where people will see Bitcoin everywhere. They'll see like the availability to have it in their bank account or on their, their bank's website, or they'll just see it everywhere. And it'll just be kind of like this just thing. And
Yeah.
they won't really care about the energy, and once it becomes a big enough part of the economy, like all of the negativity about the energy usage will go out the door, or it'll become an us versus them political debate and nobody will ever do anything about it. Like right now, like everybody that hates Bitcoin goes after it because of the energy usage and none
Yeah.
of them understand it.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
the only people that fight back are the people that have Bitcoin or like it, And so that's what I think will happen is that like they won't do like the mining is going to continue to develop like, and maybe it'll get more energy efficient, but I kind of think it can't. I think that's like to go back to what I was saying. Like, I think it needs to be hard. It needs to use energy.
Yeah.
But I just think the media will handle it completely different. And it'll be the kind of thing where like liberals, you know, that don't have Bitcoin bitch about its energy, and conservatives will be who don't have Bitcoin will be like, you know, mine baby mine, you know, like it'll be like,
Yeah.
they'll cheer it on because it's part of the economy and it means jobs and it means, you know, independence or whatever.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, those people are gonna. That's their loss. If you don't, like I said, you can't not believe in it or believe in it. Like there's El Salvador literally adopted it. What, last week, 2 weeks ago, as legal
Oh, and
tender.
yeah, and that's gonna. I mean, I've already seen a bunch of other countries, so that's crazy. Another comparison between Bitcoin and gold is I don't know how long it took gold to become, you know, recognized by a government, right?
Yeah.
But it took Bitcoin 13 years, and I imagine that's quicker than it took gold, you know.
Oh yeah, and it's just going to be exponential from now on too. Like
Yeah,
once outside now, like you said, other countries are doing it, and we're in the U.S. right now, right? We're a little biased because the whole world, they use USD, they use the U.S. dollar. So obviously, if you're in the U.S., you're gonna be like, "What? That doesn't make any sense. We're not going to use that." But if you're in El Salvador, it makes a little bit more sense to want to use Bitcoin, or a country like El Salvador to adopt a currency that isn't tied to the U.S. dollar.
yeah. Oh, well, I mean, that's another thing when I'm arguing with, you know, friends and family that don't get it and whatever. Um, it's like you got to change your perspective from an American or you know, uh, like a well-to-do nation. If you're from a good economy, like you don't understand it. In El
Yeah.
Salvador, 70% of the people don't have a bank account. I don't know what
Wow.
percentage of Americans don't have a bank
That's
account,
crazy.
but I don't know any of them. So I'm guessing it's lower than 70. Like, I mean, I had a
Definitely.
bank account before I, you know, was 13,
Yeah, that's a
you
high
know,
number, 70%.
70%. And so, and that's the thing. Like, the big thing that people don't seem to like realize is the arc of evolution of human society is decentralization. And you know, we already had taxi cabs. That whole industry went down because of Uber and Lyft, you know, and which is essentially decentralized um, transportation.
Mm,
Airbnb has like killed the hospitality industry, right?
yep.
And that's a decentralized to some extent. I mean, it's centralized through a website, but still,
Yeah.
it's you know peer to peer
Yep.
hospitality. Um,
OnlyFans.
yeah, yeah. I mean, all the stuff, you know, all the stuff that like got changed by the pandemic and the
Yeah.
world, you know, going virtual, is all pretty peer to peer and decentralized. Bitcoin is decentralized bank, like, and so because of that store of value, you know, it really has made it that you don't need a bank. You know,
Or it's
you can
going to be
be
at least, right?
well, I mean, already, I think you could navigate that. You know, you'd have a different life than most people, and you would handle things differently, and you know, whatever. But there is the you know the same traditional financial instruments that we enjoy being part of Western civilization financial world. All of those things are happening on Bitcoin using the Lightning Network and stuff like that, and other cryptos and everything, to where you could navigate the world at this point, as long as you don't have too much financial responsibility, like it,
Hmm.
like if you don't have a mortgage and kids and you know whatever, if you're kind of a free floater anyway, like you could totally live your life 100% in Bitcoin as long as you had some way to earn it. You know, you can save it and spend it without touching a bank at all, you
Hmm.
know.
Do you think
um
in the future that we'll have more incorporation into our society, where like if you're not just, this free floater guy that's just, living off of Bitcoin, like, would you think we'll ever get paid in cryptocurrency, or through markets like Ethereum, or decentralized markets like supposedly they're establishing, and people will be able to access of investing through decentralized, like DeFi as they call it, and we really aren't going to need a bank account. Like, what I'm trying to say is, like, do you think most people will be able to sustain the lifestyle that they're living now, say have a mortgage, have kids, a regular job, but also not need a bank account at the same time?
Yeah. So it depends on what country you live in.
Oh yeah.
like if you live in El Salvador, yeah, next year you're gonna be able to do all that, but as far as for the bigger economies, there's a war that's gonna get fought first,
Yeah.
because what has to happen for the reserve currency status of the dollar has to change before Americans are afforded that. I think you're going to have to, you could still have a mortgage and everything, but you're going to have to use the bank as a go-between. We're always going to have that middleman. Well, and I won't even say you have to be that much of a floater, honestly. As long as you don't mind paying the fees to go in and out of it.
Yeah.
Like, you can still save all of your money yourself in Bitcoin. I basically do that now.
Yeah.
Like, I have other cryptocurrencies. I make some trades or whatever, but like, that's all money that's just funny money for, the same way someone has Robinhood on their phone, basically, with stocks, like that's whatever. But like, I save my net worth in Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I haven't sold it yet, and I don't think I will. Like, I'm kind of a long-term hodler, as they say, or whatever. But to go back to what I was saying about, like, the financial instruments are there, the killer apps are being built. I don't know if you've messed around with Strike, but Strike is like that's the company that's like responsible for El Salvador kind of taking this plunge. And so Strike is like a Venmo or PayPal, basically. When you look at it, it looks, or Square Cash, it looks very similar to those. But when you send to it, you can send stable coins, dollar backed or dollar denominated cryptos, Bitcoin, or no, any fiat currency that they in countries they support, and I don't know what that is. So, but it is always shown as dollars. When it shows up on your app, it's in dollars, mm-hmm. Right? And then if you send that dollars to a Bitcoin address, it'll come out Bitcoin. If you send it to a Bitcoin Lightning address, it'll come out Lightning Bitcoin. If you send it to a stablecoin address, it'll come out as stablecoin. If you send it to a Bitcoin ATM, you can get it out as Bitcoin or as cash or whatever. So it does all this. I don't understand the technical component of it. But it does this conversion behind the scenes with very, very low fees. And it's apparently, at least in the US, not a taxable thing. So if you wanted to sell Bitcoin or transact in it, that app's already there to do that. And to do all those conversions without too much of a middleman other than this app, Yeah. And it's instant too. Like, you don't have to wait at all. So that's going to continue to develop and stuff like that. So the really big thing that's a hurdle for not using it totally as your bank. And I just mean bank as in storing, storing your money and taking it out when you want, and not having someone say, no, sorry, and censoring that. As far as like mortgages and all that, like, I think it's just much like El Salvador is a desperate, not desperate, that sounds bad, but they're not a very good economy. Like, they got to do something. They don't have their own currency. They're just getting raped by the USD inflation. You know,
Mm-hmm.
when our gas, you know, or when our inflation goes up 2%, it goes up 20% for them. And like, you know, that's one reason 70% of people in that country don't have a bank, is because they live hand to mouth, you know, like they
Yeah.
don't need a bank. They don't need to store anything.
Yeah.
They don't own
Wow.
anything, you know? And
Mm.
so so Bitcoin will change that for them. But, um, uh, the other thing is, or for like traditional finance to start utilizing the stuff that DeFi is, or try to compete with them as far as yields and stuff like that, it's going to take a desperate bank that needs to do something to try to gain market share and try to get out from underneath the central bank. And, you know, the regulation keeps changing for them to be able to do it. It's just going to take a bank to be like, you know, okay, we're offering this yield, you know, we're better than BlockFi. We're going to offer 10% if you keep your Bitcoin with us, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and once that happens, it's off to the races of trying to fight for that market share.
Mm. Yeah. So pretty much the other utilization of crypto is, you know, what a bank is: you store your money, or you either
Borrow
store
your money.
you either borrow your
Yeah,
money, you either
right.
store it there for interest and you gain a little bit of interest, or you borrow it and, you know, the bank makes a little bit of money. They make a little bit off of what you borrowed, right? That's pretty much the basic premise of what a bank is. So
Yeah.
that is, yeah, that's already being done in crypto right now, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, the only thing that I see stopping from not complete, like for me personally, from because I'm the same way. I don't have any savings in a bank right now either, because like there's, why would I, you know? It's just kind of illogical when you kind of see what's happening with inflation, like you said. So, you know, the only thing that's stopping me from not having a bank account is that I literally have to, you know, I can't buy groceries with Bitcoin yet. And, you know, I can't get paid for my job in Bitcoin yet. And there's still like ways of converting my USD into crypto. You know, I have to take that step first. But like until when we get to that point where I can just say, hey, just pay me in some Bitcoin, you know, just pay me in some Ethereum, or can I just pay you in some Bitcoin? Where I go to like Whole Foods, I'm like, hey, I'm just gonna pay you in some Ethereum or Bitcoin or something like that. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
like, why am I gonna need a bank? And I think most people are gonna realize that too. They're gonna come to the conclusion, unless I can see you having a bank for people they don't want to have to worry about it. They want somebody else to worry about their money or have some kind of insurance, you know, maybe. But I mean, if you're somewhat financially sound and you have, you know, some rational thinking in your head of or some financial responsibility, I don't see why anyone is going to want to use a bank. It's actually going to be more advantageous for you to not use a bank. You're going to have higher yields, like you said. You're going to gain higher interest on the money that you store in crypto. Um, and you know, and I'm pretty sure, I'm not 100% sure because I've never really done it myself. But when you borrow from, like, is it BlockFi? You said,
Yeah.
yeah. Is it lower interest rates when you, like, say I borrow like $1,000? Would that be like a lower interest rate than a bank right now? Like, what's the
No,
interest rates like?
no, it's not.
Do you think we'll ever get there?
um, well, it goes into, you know, how the central bank is handling the inflation situation where they're always lowering the rates, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and so money's cheap to borrow because they can print the fuck out of it and they want you to
yeah,
have it. Because see, this is the
yeah,
thing. Banks want you to borrow, and BlockFi, everybody wants you to borrow because you're working to get a paycheck and you have to service your loan. You have to pay the interest rate and the principal back, and they don't even want you to pay the principal back. They want you to be late. You know, they want you,
yeah,
they
exactly.
want more fees.
Yeah, it's
They
a
want that
business.
money coming in that you're their proof of work. You know, like you
Yeah,
got to work and pay. And so, like, for instance, you know, one thing going on right now is home prices, right? And like 65% of the homes being bought or at least bid up, and creating this crazy high home valuation in this country is investment funds, like hedge funds and stuff like that. Like BlackRock is the biggest one. And so the reason is, like, they can write off whatever they spent on the home, and they get free money from the federal bank to, or from the central bank um, to take out a mortgage or whatever, or to borrow money to buy homes and to buy you know, property. Um,
Assets.
but they're going to turn that around and rent that. And they're going to get that money coming in. We're the liquidity for the whole fucking system. They can give each other as much money as they want to keep the whole shit show going. They need our payments. They need our overdraft fees. They need our, I lost my ATM card. Okay, that's a $15 fee. They need that shit. That's the real money in the system. So we're the proof of work. And so that's the thing is like when you really dissect what could happen, maybe not what will happen, what could happen in a proof of work Bitcoin based system, it will start to, over a few generations, turn that whole culture around. The credit culture, and it's a big thing. I don't know how much you run across, like a lot of Bitcoiners are Austrian economists, right? And so from the amount of reading I've done on that and everything and podcasts I've listened to, I guess I would say I am too. But mainly because of like the core premise that I've taken away from Austrian economics is that you cannot build a house today with the lumber you plan to cut down tomorrow. And that's our whole economic system. It's all credit.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, but that's eventually going to catch up to us, right? You can't just keep doing that.
Well, so here's the other thing, and to use the housing market as the example, right? That's what happened in 2008 is they were taking people's mortgages, and then the banks the bank needs you to borrow money. They don't care about holding your money. Like they can create their own money. They don't need yours to lend out to people. Back when money was money and gold was gold, like you did need a bank because it was safer to keep it there than at your house where someone could, come in and hit you over the head and take your gold, right? But then once money became, it's already been digital forever or for 20 years or whatever. The bank doesn't need your money. They need you to borrow their money. And so in 2008, they got this whole other way to sell bonds and have people try to give them money to invest in mortgages that people were paying. And then to get even more money back from the people that are paying the mortgages, they came up with the idea of like, the ninja loan was what it was called, which means no income, no job application. And so
just giving it out to people, right?
Just giving it out. Like you don't have a job, you don't have income. Who cares? We'll give you a terrible rate. Your mortgage, you're never going to pay off the principal. We'll take the house back in foreclosure. And until that happens, you'll be paying us money and you're the liquidity, you're the proof of work. Right. And so on top of that, people were, because that was such a bad loan and the rate was so high, that was really valuable for people to buy these mortgage-backed securities that were sold as being like, it's someone's mortgage. Of course it's safe. But what they, the rate's crazy. They didn't like think about, well, the rate's crazy because these people are going to not pay after a while, And so that's how that whole thing unwound then. And then instead of letting the banks take the fall for that and letting that economic hit come on them, the government just printed more money and bailed them out and everybody got bonuses for doing that. Well, now we're heading into the same thing where the market is fucking crazy, just like it was then.
Yeah.
The difference is that the home price is, being driven up to a point where, well, the ones that are being bought by people and not by investment funds, who can put 20% down on a house anymore? Nobody. So when that happens, you have to pay what's called principal mortgage or private mortgage insurance, PMI. And what that is like a fund of everybody paying into it, just like how insurance works, that when people, lose their house, the bank's not out any money. They get the payout from the insurance plan that the people have been paying. So even if we have another 2008 crash, the banks are going to get their money, even if they don't get bailed out again because of the insurance payouts.
Damn.
For a house that they're going to take back too. So like they're going to get a double payday. They're going to get money when you're paying the payments. They're going to get money if you don't pay it, and they're going to get your house, and they're going to sell it again. And it's just a cycle where I don't think it can crash. I think it's lulling everybody to sleep. The free money era of just money everywhere. How many people thought, Well, I mean, look, everywhere's hiring, right? Because people, you could be a Dogecoin millionaire right now. Who gives a shit? Like all you need is a cell phone and you can be rich.
Yeah.
And so I think we're just being lulled to sleep by that. And then we're going to wake up and realize like, I can't, I'm going to have to be grinding, hustling, working, whatever until I die. I can't save anything. This money
Yeah.
is just so fluid that it doesn't stay in any one place.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's going to be hard for younger generations to own anything.
Yeah.
And that can't get taken away. And Bitcoin is that one thing that like you can own, and the only person that can lose it is you.
Mm.
There's not much left in the world that's going to be like that.
Yeah. Wow. That's a good way to put it, man. So essentially, what you just described is the game that these banks are playing is essentially what it's doing is it's making money that we use lose value, and the
Yep.
work that we do to earn the money, the proof of work that we are, it's making that the dollar essentially go less and less further than it used to.
Yeah.
But it's such a slow process that we're not even really seeing it happen.
Yeah.
So the hedge against that, I guess, is like it's Bitcoin. It's so that we actually don't have to work three jobs. And we don't have to sell drugs on the side to survive. That's a crazy way to put it. So it's really just, is there any alternative? Like Bitcoin it's like the fight against the system. I guess that's why I kind of called it like the revolution before, because it kind of is. It's the silent revolution that's going on behind the scenes so that the people can keep their power.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Well,
man.
and I think the quicker that someone comes to realization, whether it's Bitcoin or not, the quicker that people come to the realization that the economic system is making life in general so fluid and temporary and like, yeah, just payment driven and not ownership driven.
Yeah.
The quicker you chase things that are, just kind of intangible, and even if you're not investing in crypto, investing in yourself, learning skills and feeling independent, feeling like an individual. I think that's a solution. And I think like the more you think about that and the more you become an individual, and as you're doing that and growing alongside, Bitcoin is growing as well. Like you're just going to find it. You're going to bump into Bitcoin, and there's a saying in like it takes 3 touches or 3 bumps into Bitcoin until like the light goes on and people are like, oh shit,
That's funny.
and I think it just leads to that because that's honestly, psychedelics kind of gate. Like I mean I totally attribute my realization of Bitcoin to a mushroom trip. And but I was already heading down that road. I was already, not voting and just really given up on the idea of a nation state in general, like I was already becoming a sovereign individual, right? And then
Yeah.
so I didn't read the book The Sovereign Individual till this year, but I felt like I was like the whole time I'm reading it, it's great. It's a great book. I don't know if you've seen people talk about it before. It was written in the early 90s and it kind of predicts Bitcoin. And other people have too. There's other like philosophers and economists that predicted, that the world would move towards a Bitcoin like store of value and means of exchange. And the way that they put it in the sovereign individual, it's like they call it cyber cash, but the way they describe it, it might as well, just been Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And when I was reading that book, I mean, the whole time I was like, oh yeah, I knew that. Oh yeah, I knew that. It wasn't too, earth shattering for me because I had already like made all those realizations about like that true happiness, true fulfillment comes from feeling like and living like you're in control of your destiny,
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, man. Because yeah, it's all relates. When you realize that, money. is it's not independent to, like you said, the journey that we are on this life. It's, you know, if you are living in America or any civilized country and you're not living off the grid as a monk or something, then yeah, you're going to be tied to money. So if you are, do like you said, you want to become that sovereign, independent, um, you know, individual that with a sense of, I guess, power, maybe like a sense of a sense of just not being tied to the system, not being a slave, you know, not, you know, some kind of sense of living freedom, I guess. Freedom is the word, you know?
Yeah.
And if you want some kind of sense of freedom, yeah, along the way, Bitcoin just seems like it's just an obvious answer to that, you know, or cryptocurrency just seems like the obvious answer to freeing yourself from the bondage of the system that we just described previously, and how it just continually is putting us deeper and deeper into the system. Yeah, I'm kind of interested though. So you were tripping on mushrooms, and then you had this actualization of Bitcoin, crypto.
Yeah. So, well, and another reason, you know, my personal journey, I haven't made the video yet. I'm gonna soon, and it'll be up on my channel. But, you know, for 15 years, I was in just crippling credit card debt, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I always managed, I played the balance transfer game and stuff like that. But it's always been this fucking, you know, thing holding back so much of my like mental and spiritual freedom,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Is I didn't have financial freedom. And
Mm-hmm.
financial freedom could be, I don't mean like, oh, you're rich now or whatever. Like those monks that you're talking about, like they have financial freedom because like they're free of the negative influence that that energy of value has, you
Yeah,
know.
it's energy. Yeah, like
Yeah.
yeah, it's not. Yeah, you can have $1 million and still not be financially free.
Yeah.
It's how you
And
relate to it. Yeah.
yeah. And so I spent so long being like the proof of work for these credit card companies and just paying and never getting over that hump and never paying it off, you know, and getting hit with all these fees and you know, whatever, like all this shit. I've gone through collections and I had an R9 on my credit report, which is refusal to pay. I like after dealing with collections so long, I was like, you know what, fuck you, and changed my number and moved and all that, you know. So it's always been like this this black cloud hanging over. And so like I think a lot of psychedelic trips where I had a bad trip filled with, you know, existential dread and worry, like that was a component, right? That was clouding that and holding me back and not letting me break through as much as I probably should and could. So
Mm-hmm.
this one time I was, you know, just kind of having a mushroom meditation. You know, I don't remember much else about the trip because like I decided to like I felt that fear and anxiety of debt creeping in, and like I was just, you know, the whole like, you know, face your fears, see what they want from you. I just followed that instead of getting anxious and getting into a bad trip. I was like, all right, what the fuck is this cloud? You know, let's
Yeah.
swim through this cloud, right? And it just took me on this visual journey, you know, with behind my eyes, obviously, of what money is, what value is, you know, and I saw, you know, like vendors in like a Moroccan market bartering, like we were talking about, and then I saw like spice routes, and I zoomed out to like the globe, and I saw, you know, all the slave trade and
Wow.
you know, just like the evolution of
Yeah.
markets, of banks, of everything. I just saw it all build up, you know, over you know, hundreds of years on fast forward, and seeing these networks grow, and then
That's nuts.
seeing the networks leave the earth and go up to satellites, and like we expanded our network, right?
Oh,
And then like just saw this network grow, and it's just this web getting built around the world. I saw that was the internet, and that increased the speed of these connections and everything. And then like all of a sudden I just snapped to, and like I said out loud, like the word was just there, like in my head, and I said Bitcoin. And I was not into Bitcoin before that. I knew what it was because I was tempted to try to buy acid on the dark web, and like I Googled it and it said you have to get Bitcoin, you have to download a wallet, you have to go, and it was just like this confusing thing that I was like, whatever, I'm not gonna mess with that. Like acid will come to me when it comes to me, and like I don't need to do that, and whatever. That's it. I hadn't researched it anything other than to buy drugs online. But that vision and that message I got was one of the top 5 light bulb moments in my life. And then like a fool, I went down that route and started researching how to buy it and invest it, and then got into the shitcoin game because I was, I was like, oh, Bitcoin's already $900. Like that's kind of expensive. This stuff's $1, and so, so that was like 2016. I think I bought my first Ethereum in 2017 and have been riding the roller coaster since then. And I've definitely followed that path of no coiner, shit coiner, Bitcoiner, like I definitely did that. And like I said, I still have several alts that I trade frequently and move positions around and yield farm and I do a little of that. And I don't hate on anybody that does. But currently at this state, the only crypto that I feel has a potential to do all the things we've been talking about is Bitcoin. And I really think that's why that mushroom message was so clear about Bitcoin. I didn't snap out of it and say crypto,
What about Ethereum?
Yeah, it's worth speculating on. I don't think it's going anywhere.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have the same decentralization, security, proof of work. It is not. It is creating value through speculation. It's not creating value through work, and I think that's a key component that like you really need to like get on the like electrophysical level of Bitcoin and understand that it is taking energy that potentially and probably would be wasted, and it is transporting it, the value of that energy, across space and time. And there's nothing else that does that. There's nothing else that does that.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is too.
Music does maybe, but
yeah. So to fully understand what Bitcoin is, you actually do have to get to the fundamentals of it like that, to realize the value of what it is you have to like see it from an outside perspective on the bigger picture of what it actually is on an energetic level. And when you can actually see it like that, or somewhat see it like that, then it makes sense. Because it is, like you said, it is just energy. It's just a transfer of energy into something,
right?
Into value.
But I look at it like this, right? Is that the only time that can even from a value financial investment level, the only time period that can even relate to right now is the .com bubble, .com boom, or whatever. When the internet first came out and like people were like, oh shit, like commerce can totally move to the hyperspace. There was just this bum rush to do that, and so, and there's websites that came out of that, like Amazon, that own the world now, and there's websites like pets.com that don't exist anymore, and both of those were valuable, just as valuable. Maybe pets.com was more valuable than Amazon at one point. I don't know. I'd have to look at that, but still I look at like Ethereum or, Cardano or whatever. They're fighting to be Amazon, but Bitcoin is the internet, but the difference is you can own a piece of it. And if you could own a piece of the internet, if you could own a piece of www.com and you held it from 1990 and it went up in value at the same rate of its adoption, like it would have been better to hold that than it would have been Amazon, even though Amazon was a good investment.
Yeah. That's a good way
you
to put
know.
it.
Yeah. So it's like there's I just don't see a crypto beating Bitcoin, but I don't see cryptos going to all of cryptos going to zero.
Yeah,
Um,
they can coexist.
Ethereum, yeah, it's like they often say, Bitcoin's gold, Ethereum silver. I don't think it's like that. I think it's Bitcoin is gold 2.0 and Ethereum is oil 2.0.
Mm,
Like its
okay.
value is going to be dependent on being the the liquidity or the money of a system that everybody's using. But if people
Okay.
aren't all using the Ethereum network, then there's nothing to back its value other than its speculation, and something could overtake that at any point.
Yeah. What do you think things like NFTs are going to fuel that?
Well, NFTs are going to change the way investment and ownership is, right? That like I think the old school like buying stock in a company is going to go away.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that like it's going to be hard to raise taxes to the level that's needed to support infrastructure. So I think smart government, smart developers and stuff like that are going to tokenize building projects. You could issue 20,000 NFTs for the new bridge and have it written into the NFT that the tolls on the bridge are split among the people that own the NFT.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a definite possibility of what I think could happen. Say the Eiffel Tower falls into disrepair and they need to repair it. They could tokenize it and sell 20,000 NFTs to raise
Oh,
the money to fix it. And then from there on, you own a portion of the Eiffel Tower and make passive income from a profit sharing from the tours and stuff like that.
that's
Uh,
crazy.
yeah, so
Damn.
that's definitely one thing that's possible. I mean, and it's used for art now. I think it's mainly used for money laundering at this point. Um, uh, and there's a lot of scams and stuff like that. But the potential in the future of what they represent, I think, is more what I was just talking about, tokenizing real world stuff and
Mm,
and and sharing ownership of something that previously kind of no one owned or just one big corporation or whatever.
mm.
Um, but I think for art, I think it's great. I think it can change music. Uh, I think Kings of Leon's the only band that's done like a real album NFT now. Well, maybe there's more, but still, the way they can do that they've gotten screwed by record companies and streaming services for so long. I think that doing the NFT model can be um, more. They can make more money for the art they produce by tokenizing it
Yeah.
and decentrally distributing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know like the Project Tezos is doing something with NFTs and music. I don't know
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. I mean, it's going to take a while for that to shake out, but like that's a legit piece of technology that I think will be valued in Bitcoin at some point, but still is like that's not going to zero against Bitcoin. That's going to be valued in Bitcoin, but it's not
Yeah.
going to zero against Bitcoin. So it's like I don't buy any NFTs. I'm not getting involved in that market and stuff like that. And I think like the fact that like some GIFs or whatever have sold for millions of dollars and whatever, I think that's kind of nonsense and whatever. But again, it shows how free money is right now.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
I wouldn't spend $1 million on a fucking emoji, but whatever. Like if people got millions of dollars to do it and they don't give a shit, and they know it's easy come, easy go. Like then okay, then
Yeah.
you know,
The world's changing, man. It really is. Just stuff like that is just it's just, it's showing you that it's like, yo, it's happening. It
yeah,
really is. It's crazy, man. It really is. It's a weird time to be alive. Just all the
yeah,
shit that's happening, and it's I don't know. I'm glad that I can witness it and just kind of see it, but it's slowly we're changing into this different kind of society.
yeah,
Like you said, a more a freer society, more sovereign. But I think on the other side, like it's actually getting less free. Like if you're not taking advantage of this and you don't know anything about crypto, you're actually going to become less and less free. You're going to become more bogged down by the system,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
become more of a servant slash slave, whatever you want to call it. But if
Yeah.
you take advantage of what's happening and you pay attention, then you'll be able to free yourself a little bit more and become the sovereign individual. But you have to be smart. You have to be conscious. You have to be smart. There's no choice. You have to either like you have to play the game and know how to play the game, or you're just going to get played yourself.
Yeah.
Essentially, we don't
Yeah.
have a choice at this point. But yeah, that's you have to be smart enough to do it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm coming to realize.
Yeah. Well, it's like, the river that is, the flow, like Terrence McKenna says, we're like hurtling towards the transcendental object at the end of time, right? Like we're all doing that.
Yeah.
If we let the flow take us, we're gonna be bouncing off the rocks and fucking, we're gonna hit every obstacle on the way there. That if that path towards the transcendental object at the end of time is a whitewater canyon ride or whatever, like if you're flowing through, you're just going to be bashing off shit. If you're conscious and you're aware and you're watching and also learning, like, how'd we get here? Because everybody's just like, how'd we get here? What the fuck? What the fuck is the central bank do? Like, you're just born into it.
Exactly.
And if you start like just finding out how we got here, see that some people got through it without banging off all the shit, and be like, well, what path did they take? Mm-hmm. And how can I take that now? It's all about consciousness and awareness, and you're going to have a much more pleasant hurtling towards the transcendental object at the end of time. Like you can't you can't get out of that path, I don't think. But yeah, like I just think there's a much easier path that being aware and knowledgeable. You can play the same game. That's what's the revolution that is crypto and the decentralization of finance and stuff, is that it's easier for us to play the games that we didn't know people were playing before.
Yeah, exactly. Evens out the playing field.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, like, for instance, we mentioned BlockFi, but a big thing about not selling Bitcoin if you need cash, right, is to borrow against it, and basically as long as it continues to go up, at the end of the loan period you can just take out another loan, pay off the original one, and none of this, you have to pay any taxes, right? And you can just live off a loan every year with your collateral as this Bitcoin that's appreciating in value. Well, that's not something they created. That's what rich fucks like Donald Trump and all these like people that own all this crazy real estate and pay no taxes. Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, they pay no taxes because they have no income. They own all these shares of this and all these businesses and all these buildings of insanely valuable stuff that goes up every year. And they just borrow against it and they don't pay any taxes. And they're just constantly getting a loan from a bank, yeah. And that's what they've done forever. And we weren't allowed to do that, but now we can.
That's interesting, man. Yeah. When you put it like that, it's all a game. The system that we were thrust into, that we were put into. When you realize that it's a game that has rules, you realize that you can, thanks to crypto, we know we can play the game ourselves. Yes, we can. But you got to learn the rules first. You got to kind of, like you said, do your research, become aware that of what you have to do. You got to make a little bit of money. You got to work a little bit, and then we have all the tools now to be able to become the player one. We can play this game because it's just this money, this system, this financial system where it's just a giant game. That's what I've come to realize. I'm like, over my realizations, I'm like, dude, this is all just like this crazy game of numbers that we somehow got ourselves into, from the bartering system that we talked about before, from like, I'll give you 2 goats for 1 cow. We somehow evolved over the years through all different currencies and different nations. We're in the system now that we're in,
Yeah.
which is extremely complicated, but it's really not. It is like there's a lot of different intricacies in it, but in its essence, it's actually really not that complicated. Like when you kind of know, if you kind of know a little bit about it, you're like, oh, it's just a game, and if I know, I can play it myself too. And yeah, I guess that's the biggest thing we can get from this convo, man. Is just we all have the ability to play this game now. You know, it's we all have that power. We all have the ability to have power, because that's what I think money is too. Is it's power, in a way. It's power, power and freedom. They kind of go
Right.
together.
It can be both, and you can kind of choose which,
Yeah.
there's two sides to that coin. You can have power over others or freedom from others through money.
Yeah. It's interesting, man. It's
And one of those takes a lot more money, by the way. Like,
yeah.
But yeah, no, I like that you say it's a game, because that was the biggest thing that started me towards like trying to be financially savvy. Prior to 2008, I didn't give a shit about money. I was like, whatever. And that's why I was in credit trouble. That's why I told credit card companies to fuck off and didn't pay. It was like, whatever, but then when I got married and bought a house, we bought like at the top of the market, and then it crashed like a couple months later.
Mm-hmm.
And, I heard everyone talk about the economy. And, I was like, well, whatever, at least we bought our house. And they're like, yeah, it's worth less than it is. And then when I looked into that, it was like, oh shit. So like, if I ever want to sell this house, I'm going to have to pay them to sell it. Like I now owe more money than I, have in this house. But then I read all these articles about, how real estate developers and all the institutions and rich guys, like coming through the recovery from 2008, they made a record amount of money and grew their the top 1% wealth grew by whatever. And this is about the time that like the Occupy Wall Street movement started, and I was following a lot of that information from that. And that's the biggest realization I had from that, was like, oh shit, this was all a game. And those dudes won, and I fucking lost. And
Exactly.
like, I didn't even know I was playing a game. Okay, what's this game? And then so it's like, yeah, from 2008 till now, that's just been a big journey, for me, listening to fucking financial podcasts and YouTube channels and reading, The Theory of Money and Credit by Mises, and, books that were written in 1912. And this one book I read, Reminiscence of a Stockbroker. Like I never would have fucking read books like that unless I thought it was a game and I was trying to read the instruction manual to that game.
Yeah, and that's the difference, man, is because there's the awareness that it's a game, and then there's when you're unaware, you have no clue, because there's plenty of people that either way you're playing the game or the game's playing you. We're caught in the system either way. So you either become aware and you learn how to play it, or else you're just gonna be going through the system on the hamster wheel.
You're the loser. Yeah.
Exactly. You're either the winner or the loser, or somewhere in between, I guess. Or, it depends on what you're doing, I guess. But yeah, I want to be the winner. Yeah. I'd rather be the winner. I don't know about everybody else. But yeah, you wanted to become aware. And I think that's the biggest step is, when you become aware of what this is, this crazy reality that we're caught in, then you can start to take the reins. You can start to say, hey, I want to live my life for me, for the best that I can, have some kind of semblance of freedom. And crypto, it seems to me, is allowing us to do that. As time goes on, it's allowing us to have financial freedom to a certain extent, to be able to, and especially for people that aren't in the United States. It allows them to enter that financial system, the global financial system, without a bank account, like we talked about before. So it's even more important to people that aren't in the United States. And,
right.
And those are huge.
Yeah, and those are the same countries. Like the countries that are going to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender are the same ones. It's all fractals, right? And they're the proof of work for the central banks. Like look at the Middle East. Like, why are they so fucking poor? Because we're taking all of the value that they've been sitting on and taking that value and dissipating it across the world. And we're taking it from a country that they don't have, most of the people don't have bank accounts, but they also don't have cars or a need for oil, but they are on top of all the oil that's there. And so we're taking all of that value. I mean, there's also, greed that comes into play with the people that are making the money off of it. But still, if you look at these countries that are going to adopt Bitcoin, they're countries that they export a lot more than they get paid for. And, they're the proof of work. Like they're providing the stuff that everybody else makes money off of.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like it's just creating a fairer system altogether. Ultimately, it seems like that's in the fundamentals of it, it's creating a fairer way to conduct business and conduct ourselves and just going back to it, live a more sovereign life if you really want to. That's what it seems like it's trying to do, which is, man, like what are the repercussions of that going to be for the powers that be? Like, that's crazy, man. Because they have to know, the powers that be, quote unquote, have to know like what Bitcoin and cryptocurrency means to their influence in their sphere of control.
Yeah,
it's got to be a little scary.
They know what the potential is, I'm sure. They saw that coming before it was named Bitcoin. They saw the potential. I think the thing is, though, the saving grace for most of us is that with that extreme power and how they've controlled the game up to this point, they have the bravado to think that we can change this too. We'll change this game. And at times they will, but eventually Bitcoin changes you. You don't change Bitcoin. And that is very true on an individual level, but I think that will be true. I feel that'll be true on a nation state central bank level as well. That they'll go along with it thinking they can change it. They'll start to realize they're not changing it and they'll fight it. And then eventually it'll just be, a thing. And they'll try to make everyone ignore it. They'll try to make it boring.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, because I don't know how we would have this same conversation. If Bitcoin follows the trajectory, I don't know how we would have this same conversation in 20 years. Like, we'd be like, wasn't that crazy back in 2020 when like Bitcoin was, El Salvador was the first country to, or whatever. Like, and it'll just be kind of boring.
What do you mean by boring? What do you mean? So in 20 years, you're saying that it's not going to have the resonance that it has now?
Like most change in humanity is imperceptible at the time,
Okay.
And so it will change things, but and on looking back, we'll be like, holy shit, we came pretty far, right? But that, like, okay, for instance, the first time you used PayPal, that was revolutionary.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
But now you wouldn't brag like, yeah, I just PayPal'd this guy, dude. It's cool. Like, I mean, it's a little different, but still, it's like revolutionary shit. Like, it's hard at the time to step back and be like, wow, this is amazing. Once it's really like been adopted and mass, accepted.
Yeah.
I guess if that makes sense. Or maybe PayPal's not as good of an example. Maybe eBay is. Like, that's crazy that like basically eBay took a yard sale, and made it global.
Yeah. And
like, that's crazy. But now it's just, you don't even use it anymore because it's like, there's better places to look for stuff, and so it's possible Bitcoin's like that, where Bitcoin only goes up 15% a year. So like people are like back to shit coins, because there's more potential there or whatever. Or like, Bitcoin becomes such a part of, like I was saying about people borrowing against it, right? Maybe that becomes such a thing that it just doesn't really move around that much anymore. There's like huge sales every now and then, but it moves around as much as like large commercial real estate in a city does. And so like, why would we talk about that? Like it, like everybody's just borrowing off of it and living off of it and building things from it, which is, a big thing that I guess I wanted to touch on too, is that's what I hope comes out of this transfer of wealth from the manipulators and the mustache twirlers, as I've seen them called, that I kind of like, that it moves from the mustache twirlers to us and to the dreamers. And we build shit with it, not just buy Lambos and whatever. Like we make things that like, for instance, I'm using a portion of my crypto to create a nonprofit, an LLC for my property I own in New York State to make a hostel. And my whole thing is to donate my portions of my crypto to build that, and then create something and create a culture that just exists after I'm gone. It's owned by an LLC, and it's nonprofit, and its whole business model is going to be set to maintain and to not cost anybody anything, but to not make anybody anything either. And there's definitely great technological stuff that's going to be built because of the newfound capital in crypto. But I'm hoping there's more humanistic stuff as well, nonprofits and charities and stuff like that wouldn't have been possible. People wouldn't have had the financial momentum to be able to do things like that without this wealth transfer. And so that's like a big picture thing that I hope happens. And I hope in 20 years, that's what we're talking about, and not markets and head and shoulders patterns on the charts and all the stuff. I spend a lot of time absorbing all of that content about markets and stuff like that. Like, I just want that to be old news. I want the things we've created that are going to stay in perpetuity past our time. That couldn't have been built without crypto. That's what I want to be talking about in 20 years. And if that does come to fruition, and there's more people with visions like mine, and there's networks of things like that going on, Bitcoin may still be exciting, but it won't be as exciting as that, if that makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, totally. That's the important aspect of it, is giving power to the right kind of people.
Yeah.
And then thus changing the world. Yeah, that's huge, man. I'm glad you brought that up. I think that's going to be a thing, though. It should be, because, the people that are into crypto are probably a little more conscious minded, I guess. Maybe. I don't know. I don't really know. It's not like I take a survey or anything, but there's definitely different kinds of people that are into crypto. It could be anybody. That's the thing. It could be anybody that could be in this, that has some sort of money, and they can get into it and, create something like you're making, or whatever it is. It could be anything, which is amazing. It changed the world in so many different ways, and it's up to us. It's really up to us. That's the thing. It gives power to us. It really does. Over time, it gives you the ability to create the life that you really want to create. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, and I think the crossover population, the population in the crossover area of crypto and enlightenment and consciousness, whether that's, the psychedelic crowd, the yoga crowd, the meditation crowd, the, survivalist crowd, whatever, the people that are into really the now and the forever growth of your spirit while you're alive, like those people that have just this like lust for life and experience, but also understand crypto and are into it and invested and all of that little cross section, that's going to be the really world changing population. The synergy there, and that's one reason, like I said, I came across crypto from psychedelics. Like the synergy in psychedelics and crypto is unbelievable to me. And a lot of people, like they don't get it.
That's not an accident.
Yeah. And you don't get it until you really lay it out. But just as simple as like most people bought crypto to buy drugs online. Like
Yeah.
just right there, there's a natural
Yeah,
synergy.
I
But
got into Bitcoin to buy mushroom spores.
yeah, exactly. And so like there's a natural synergy right there.
Yeah.
Just in their origin story. Well, not origin psychedelics. Origin story is way older, but in the origin story in today's culture.
Yeah.
Because I think psychedelics like had kind of gone by the wayside until the dark market became a thing.
Mm.
We were getting more into like synthetic drugs and stuff like that, but like I definitely know I forgot what book I was reading about LSD, but the the as the Grateful Dead stopped touring, which is funny, I got a thing there, but as the Grateful Dead stopped touring, that was like one of the biggest networks for LSD distribution in
Yeah.
the world. And then also you had, I don't know if you've ever seen the YouTube video for the underground LSD missile silo.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
like so like when that guy got busted, they said he was making 80% of the world's LSD.
Yeah.
There's all this stuff that
That's
happened right
crazy.
before the dark net. And I think the classical psychedelic uh drug networks had kind of died down until crypto became a thing and the dark web and stuff like that. And there was this resurgence and revitalization of the psychedelic culture that isn't totally because of crypto, but like it was kind of,
Yeah.
like, I
Indirectly
mean,
related.
it utilized it or whatever. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of synergy there, and that goes for the philosophy of the two cultures as well. And that yeah, like I guess what I started off on that tangent was, yeah, that cross section of like consciousness folks that are also crypto folks, like they're gonna do some fucking awesome shit for this world,
I think so, man. I think so too. It's all related to freedom. That's why, like those, the idea of psychedelia and in crypto, it's just related to the idea of being a free thinking individual. It's just being free. We all just want to be liberated. So it's just kind of that's the essence. I think it's just that we just don't want to really be controlled anymore. And that's what's if you take psychedelics, that's kind of what they show you. They show you a way to um, I don't know, open up your mind to how we've been conditioned, and we can go down that rabbit hole if you want to, but I mean, it just really gets down to the essence of just living your own life, living on your own terms. That's kind of like where these two things hold that synergy. I think,
yeah,
at least.
yeah.
Yeah, man, it's
I think a
crazy.
big thing too, like especially with psychedelics, is like something they teach you is like to not need as much. I need now. I need awareness. I need
Yeah,
consciousness. I need the moment.
yeah, exactly.
I don't need these things, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um and like yeah, I think that taking that message away from meditation and psychedelics, and then also having the wealth transfer opportunity I was talking about, like it gives you that chance of like, as long as I don't get greedy, as long as I am happy with what I have,
Yep.
Bitcoin and crypto can give you the freedom to just maintain that,
Yeah. Yeah.
like I don't need more and more and more every year. I don't need a better car every year. I don't need that. But if you're stuck being proof of work for the system, they're going to make you think you need more and more so that you earn more and more, buy more and more, put more and more into their liquidity.
Yeah, exactly.
And so like consumerism increases as economic slavery it increases. So
Hmm.
thus, like the less or the more economically free or financially free that you are, the more um or the less consumer driven you probably will end up being, or
Hmm.
should. That's what you should be aiming for.
You should be. Yeah, you potentially have that
Yeah,
ability. Be yeah, definitely. Oh, it's all related. Yeah, it all
yeah.
makes sense, and that's why I wanted to have this convo, man, because this it's all related, and that's what's
Hmm.
that's what's the beauty of it too. It's just like I don't know. There's something special about cryptocurrency. Obviously, we all know that. But it's just the beginning. I really think
Mm-hmm.
it's just the beginning of this whole. It's gonna change. Like in 10 years from now, can you imagine where this world's gonna be in 10 years from the advent of crypto? It's gonna be crazy. We're gonna
Yeah.
be talking about like it's June 25th, 2021. We're gonna be we're gonna think back to this day and be like, yeah, man, like you said, El Salvador just legalized it like a few weeks ago, and we're gonna think that that's old news. There's gonna
Yeah.
be plenty of countries that are gonna be utilizing it in ways that we probably can't even imagine right now. Like
Yeah.
what do you think it holds? What do you think the future holds for crypto? If you could speculate, like where do you think we're gonna go from here?
Well, I think it's going to change the system, but it's not going to, like I was talking about the individualism. It's not going to make everybody an individualist, and like PayPal and eBay and all those things, those were great tools for people to become self-sufficient and to become financially individual. Like say you wanted to like open a store, but you couldn't pay for a lease on a place or whatever. Like eBay gave you that ability to like have your own store out of your house,
Yeah,
right? So Bitcoin's going to provide that opportunity for people that have just been getting raped by interest rates and whatever. And like now they actually have acquired capital in an appreciating asset in a deflationary system in Bitcoin. Now, all of a sudden, even though the system hasn't changed, they're, free of it because they actually like have, room to breathe now or whatever.
yeah, to build value.
Yeah. So I think it'll just create more financially secure people,
Mm,
more entrepreneurship, less corporatism,
mm,
but there all of the problems that we're talking about will still exist. It's just that not as many people will have to get swept into it.
mm.
So it's like I don't know. I mean, there's going to be fights over energy cost and mining locations, and like
Yeah,
I
and a
think
lot
the
of
mining is
propaganda.
yeah, I think the mining industry is going to shape into something that really, really resembles the oil drilling industry, and all of the global political strife that goes over that. Like I think
Mm,
that's something that's probably inherent in humans and how we fight over value. Um, I think that will probably be a part of the Bitcoin world, which that's one side of the coin you can look at as a negative. I don't think Bitcoin will solve that, unfortunately. I know the meme is Bitcoin fixes this for everything, and Bitcoin fixes a lot of stuff, but it doesn't fix everything.
yeah. Well, that's up to
It
us to
changes.
create renewable energy forms.
Right. Yes, people fix everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know as far as money, like I think we're heading towards cashless society anyway. I think for a long time, central banks have wanted to pull an end around on treasury departments and monetary policy of governments. For instance, look at our stimulus coming out of the pandemic. Congress has to pass a bill to give everyone $1,200, right?
Mm-hmm.
That money is coming from money that the central bank lends the government, but Congress has to pass the ability to do that. The central bank wants to just give that money to people anyway. And so I don't know if you've seen stuff about central bank digital currencies that are being floated around.
A little bit, yeah.
Um, so I think that kind of would have happened if it wasn't for Bitcoin. Like they wanted to do it, they just didn't know how. And cryptocurrency came around and showed them the roadmap of how to do that. And so I think that central banks are going to do that. That will buy the fiat system probably another 50 to 100 years of pulling the same old inflation money printing bullshit. But they will they will the narrative will to demonstrate the need for that to happen will be it's safer if we don't have cash, and like you
Yeah.
don't have to touch it's that kind of stuff, and like, oh, we can better stimulate the economy and all that. But there is a really big fundamental difference in, not that Congress is really has the people's best interest in heart, but there's still a little check and balance there of spending, by having it, that monetary policy needs to be directed by representative democracy. If we turn that ability over to a private bank that isn't part of the government, the Federal Reserve is not part of the government, they're a private bank.
Yeah.
That they've been wanting to do that, and I don't think that would have happened without Bitcoin, and I think it's definitely going to happen because of Bitcoin. And that's a way that they'll fight it, and that will work for quite some time. So, I haven't really played out all of the negative consequences of that. But I know they'll look like the same negative consequences of the last 50 years of fiat too. It'll just be a little different, and there'll be a lot more free money going around, and a lot of people will be getting a lot of checks, and they will think they're doing great. And the minimum wage is going to go up to $15 an hour. And, your cell phone plan is going to stay a little bit higher, but probably the same, because everything's going to be on that, but your rent's going to be sky high. Your gas is going to be everything's going to go up in price, but at the same time, there's going to be money flowing around. So who cares? And I think that'll start to become more apparent, and it will drive more and more people to try to understand inflation and deflation, and Bitcoin will just continue growing, and I think it'll just always be this, the standard fiat economy is always going to be the 6-lane highway. But I think crypto is going to be it's the gravel road right now. And I think in 10 years they'll pave it.
Okay.
I think in 20 years they'll put lines on it, and there'll be some gas stations on it and some street lights. It'll just kind of like be this alternative path that just keeps getting upgrades, and more people live along it, and more people are driving on it. But there's always going to be that highway over there with fucking potholes and speed traps and toll booths and it's right. It's just shitty. But both roads take us to the transcendental object at the end of time, though.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. I think we can wrap it up at that point.
All right, man. Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, summing it up is we're still so early. We're still so early in this whole process. So it's understandable why people don't really see it, and they don't understand why it's a thing. But if you're aware enough, and you're conscious enough, and you have a little bit of financial intelligence, a little bit, you don't even need a lot. If you kind of can pay attention to a little bit of what's going on in the world, you'll get why cryptocurrency and blockchain technology is obviously going to be the next big thing, but it already is the next big thing, and be incorporated into our lives as the days go on. But yeah, it's up to us. It's up to you, anyone listening, anyone watching. If you've watched this far, it's up to you to do the research at this point. Like, no one's going to do it for you. It's up to, if the more research you do, honestly, the more you're going to believe in this. That's the way I see it, at least. For me, at least, the more research that I do into cryptocurrency, and the more I read about it, listen to podcasts, watch videos, whatever it is, the more I'm like, yep, oh, this is crazy. Like, yeah, this is 100% changing the world, 100%. So it's up to us as sovereign individuals everywhere to play the game, or else it's gonna play you.